All right, South Carolina women, a number one overall seed. Can they repeat? And what is their path to success in the NCAA women's tournament? Also, baseball takes a series loss after a painful final two innings on Sunday. We talk about all that and more. Locked On Gamecocks starts right now.
You are Locked On Gamecocks, your daily podcast on the South Carolina Gamecocks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, guys? Welcome into Locked On Gamecocks. I'm your host, Chris Marler. Hope everyone's having a fantastic Monday, like I always say, if that's even possible. Now, listen, we've got a good episode for you. Before we get into it, I do want to tell you that today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. You guys have heard me talk about them before. You're going to hear me talk about them again, especially now with March Madness. It's the perfect time to join FanDuel. New customers right now can go ahead and sign up. And if you win your first $5 bet, you'll get $200 in free bonus bets just for winning your first $5 bet. Go to FanDuel.com to sign up today. Now, also want to give a quick shout out to our everyone waking up and making Locked On Gamecocks your first listen each and every day. Shout out to our everydayers. Remember, we're a free and available podcast wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, let's get into where do we want to start here? I think we're going to start with the women's seed and draw they got in the NCAA women's basketball tournament from Sunday. Now, we did a show earlier today that we put out. We recorded late on Sunday evening after the NIT news broke that Lamont Paris said they were not going to be playing in NIT in the NIT tournament. We did a great show on it. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I really, honestly, it was a fun deep dive to look into the whys and why nots of why you would play that game. But as we all know, South Carolina, the women's team, did not miss out on the tournament. They got yet another one seed and are ready to go trying to defend their national championship. So here's the deal. Looking at this breakdown, and I don't want to get too into the weeds on breakdowns for every game or anything like that soon, because the games don't start until Friday. Now, what I do love here, that is you weren't the number one overall seed, so you have a built-in chip on your shoulder. Now, that may sound stupid, and maybe they didn't even deserve to have the number one overall seed with the recent losses to Texas and UConn back in February. But that does feel like ages ago. They are a one seed. The two seed in the region is Duke. You also have not friendly faces, but familiar faces like Vanderbilt and Bama in that same region. There's not really anyone that should test you remotely until you get into the Sweet 16. Duke could be tough, but I don't think it's something that would be a super huge. How do I say this by being nice? I mean, you're a 46-point favorite in round one. You're a 46-point favorite. You should coast, right? You should coast. I don't want to jinx them or anything like that, but they should coast. You also have Duke in that same bracket. You've already beaten them. You beat them by 11 earlier this year. You don't have to face Texas. You don't have to face UCLA, and you don't have to face UConn until what would be eventually the Final Four. Now, here's the thing. We did a show on this and why it was important. And the number of teams that have made the Final Four and the overwhelming amount of national champions and also Final Four participants in the women's tournament over the last 10 years have been a 1 or a 2 seed. So that was the thing we were worried about kind of late in February after the UConn loss and Texas loss. Was like, well, if they slip, and it seems unfathomable, right? It seems unfathomable to drop to a 3 seed, and they didn't do it, right? Like they ended up being what's arguably, I guess, pretty much the number 2 overall seed. Now, dropping to a 3 seed isn't crazy because, you could theoretically be a top 10 team and still be a 3 seed. LSU is a 3 seed, but just historically speaking, there's not a ton. There's not a ton of, what's the best way to put it? Historically speaking, there's not a ton of huge success from teams that are below a 3 seed. Okay. Now, you don't have to worry about that. And again, I love the draw that South Carolina got. I love the fact that you're able to get a chip on your shoulder by not being the number one overall seed. I love the fact that you just won the SEC tournament or the SEC for the 9th time that since Dawn Staley's been there. And being a number one seed and getting the draw they got, you should have a path, a direct path to the NCAA Women's Final Four. Now, here's the thing that I'm worried about. This is the only thing I'm worried about. And this is such a nitpicky thing because it's like you have the best roster in the country, right? You have the best roster in the country. I don't think that that's up for debate, right? There are other really, really talented players in the country. You might not have the best player in the country because, that resides in Southern Cal. Paige Beckers is also really good. You saw her firsthand when she came into Colonial Life and UConn was able to beat South Carolina by double digits. But you have the most talented roster. You have the best coach. You're the defending national champions. So you have so many things working in your favor. The one thing that I hate about the women's tournament, and I've hated it forever, and I will hate it until they change it, which they need to do now. You know what sucks about this is waiting a week to go into the tournament. You have all this momentum in the world. You just went and beat Texas and won the SEC championship. You just won a number one overall seed. You finished the season on a high note. You go on this incredible run during the tournament over there in Greenville. Like it's like all the things that you needed for momentum and pace and all that kind of stuff happened. And now you got to take a week off. I don't think it's something that's going to be a huge detriment to this team. But I will say, as a team that's only lost 4 games in 3 years, you still are in a kind of an odd, this weird, not limbo, but you're in this weird new neighborhood of unfamiliar territory where you're like, man, you're not like, you're obviously a great team, and 4 losses in 3 years, there's any program in the country would trade places with you. But like, once those 2 things happened, those 2 losses, you had a massive gut check. And you had to turn things around immediately. And Dawn Staley did. To her credit, her and this team did. Chloe Kitts has been unbelievable over the last several weeks. I mean, SEC tournament MVP, deserved every second of it, had a triple-double in the game before that against Ole Miss, the last game, I think, of the regular season. Like, she's been awesome. I have zero doubt in my mind that going into this tournament, the confidence is high. I just wish at the momentum that you had, it continued without any sort of breaks. And that's just me being nitpicky. That's really the only thing I'm nervous about with this team as of right now. Listen, UCLA is really good. We've seen Texas, obviously, really good. UConn can beat anyone. It does feel like this year with the NCAA tournament for the first time in a while, like we've seen some years like where, LSU, I believe LSU was a 3 seed when they won the national title, but they were also extremely talented. And maybe they were seated too low. Caitlin Clark is gone. Iowa's nowhere to be found here, like in terms of like the national prominence. The other 1 seeds in this tournament, we'll pull this up real quick. And I'm looking through the current prediction on ESPN, and Charlie Cream has predicted every single game of the entire tournament, which is a tall task to do. And front and center is what you see is Chloe Kitts. Now listen, with Sanaya and Bree Hall and all that kind of stuff, they're so talented. They should I'm hoping you got the yips out of the way early. In this prediction, it is UConn, who's a 2 seed, over UCLA, and she has them big over UCLA. South Carolina over Notre Dame, who's a 3 seed. So they have only 2 1 seeds making the Final Four, which is pretty shocking. And then they have South Carolina and UConn in the national championship, with South Carolina winning it all. Now, again, you lost by 29 to this team not that long ago on February 16th. So basically a calendar month ago. I love where the team is at right now. I love the fact that, like I said, this is no shade at Gino Auriemma or anything like that, because I know his track record. I know his resume. It's fantastic. But in this day and age, you currently have the best coach in college basketball. Maybe it's like a Saban and Kirby Smart thing from a couple of years ago where it's like, yeah, that's the GOAT, but like this is like the new class that showed up. You have the most talented roster. The Chloe Kitts playing out of her mind right now. You expect all those things to continue on. I do think it's interesting in this year's women's bracket and in this year's field in general. Like I said earlier, LSU's a 3 seed. UConn is a 2 seed. Notre Dame is a 3 seed. Notre Dame was ranked number 1 in the country like not that long ago. They're a 3 seed. There's a lot more parity, it feels like, this year, where it doesn't feel like the number 1 seeds are just going to coast. Now, it'll be interesting to see somebody like what Juju will have with Southern Cal and being able to, like, how far she can carry them through the tournament. She clearly carried them to a Big Ten title this year, and she's been unbelievable. She is the best player in the country, hands down, but not the same kind of supporting cast that you have at South Carolina with 10 former McDonald's All-Americans. So I wonder what this looks like in terms of like there's more parity than ever, it feels like, in this year's bracket. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm being a prisoner of the moment and doing that thing that I hate, which is being a prisoner of the moment and embellishing and just for the sake of it just happened with like recency bias. But I do know one thing more than any is that in the bracket that they're in and then in the region that they're in, that parity does not seem to be concerning at all. Like, again, the 2 seed in that region is Duke, and you already beat them by 11 this year. So I love the fact that it should be a very exciting tournament. One of my favorite things about this tournament for the women's tournament as over the last 3 to 4 years is it's no longer just, well, let's tune into the Final Four and watch it once it gets to that, because otherwise it's a waste of time because all the 1 seeds are going to make it. Most of the higher seeds are going to make it. Who cares? Like, you're not going to ever see a 16 beat a 1 in the women's tournament. You're just not. And I think that going into this year, it's much more must-see TV than it has been in years past. And that's a great thing for the sport. It's a great thing for this team. And hopefully it's going to be a great thing having more eyeballs watch a back-to-back national championship. We can go jump in the fountain as soon as it's over. So, all right, that is all for the first part of today's show. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about the baseball series loss to Oklahoma. If you were listening to yesterday's episode or earlier today's episode, it sucked because I found out while we were recording, last time I checked before I hit record, Carolina has a 5-3 lead going into the 9th inning, and then lo and behold, you lose that lead. It just kind of sucks. But we're going to get to that, talk about what went wrong and what needs to change, and whether it's drastic or not moving forward. That's next on Locked On Gamecocks. All right. Welcome back to Locked On Gamecocks. I'm your host, Chris Marler. Pretty pumped, man. I'm pretty pumped about the women's tournament. I hate, we had so much fun in the fall with the winning team, and you guys know how much fun it is when things are going well. It's just much more difficult when things aren't. Like we tried to make the men's basketball thing, a thing on the show and do live post-game stuff. And, you guys, just from your own admission and request, we just didn't want to do that as much throughout the season. But I think this is going to be a fun tournament, and it'd be awesome to see South Carolina, especially in the year where they face a lot of challenges and a lot of adversity, go in there and win a back-to-back national championship. So I think that'd be cool. Anyway, let's get into baseball. Before we do, I want to also get into a quick segment from our friends at Factor. You guys have heard me talk about them before. Listen, eating healthy doesn't have to be complicated. Okay, we tend to make things like that as complicated as possible. It doesn't have to be with our friends at Factor. Now, if you have not heard of Factor, what they are, it is a healthy meal prep, chef-made, dietitian-approved meals that are ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes. Heat and eat in just 2 minutes. So you can fuel your body without the hassle of cooking. Factor meals arrive fresh, never frozen, and with 40 options across 8 dietary preferences each week. You can customize your menu to fit your goals, whether it's Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, or Keto. Personally, I love how Factor keeps you on track with healthy, delicious meals without the time-consuming prep. They also have things like the Korean beef bowl or the creamy Parmesan chicken. Those are some of my favorites. They taste homemade, but take literally zero effort, which I love even more. They also offer smoothies, breakfast, and snacks, so you always have something nutritious and ready to go. Now, Eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/factorpodcast and use the code FactorPodcast to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code FactorPodcast at factormeals.com/factorpodcast to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. Also, in addition to our new friends, or not our new friends as our old friends, but our friends nonetheless at Factor, want to tell you about our new friends at Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades. That is Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400-plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. If you need help with an order, Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use the promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. All right, let's get back into the show and talk about the weekend that was. And I'm not going to try to come off as negative about this baseball team. It's still very early in the season. You're a month in, right? You are starting to understand a little bit where you are. I'm going to have a hard time talking about baseball without wearing emotions on my sleeve and getting not granular or technical, but like I have very little patience for some things in baseball. Walks, allowing, when you put up a crooked number, allowing teams to come back out and put up runs, not putting teams away, bad fundamentals, all those things drive me absolutely insane. Not as much as anyone popping up a bunt. If I see someone on this team pop up a bunt, I will drive back to Columbia and have a tirade on our hands over here at Founders Park. But listen, here's the deal. You weren't expected to beat Oklahoma. It was the number 12 team in the country. They're now number 9 in the country, according to Baseball America. You weren't expected to beat them, okay? That doesn't make the loss, especially on Sunday, any easier to deal with. And here's where I have the issue. Like, not the issue. That sounds drastic and bad. Here's where I'm frustrated, okay? You bookended the season, or you bookended the weekend with losses that were, or you bookended the weekend with avoidable things, okay? Avoidable things. The series started on Friday, and you're at home. So you have that working for you. The series started where in the top of the first on Friday night, you give up 4 runs right off the bat. 4 runs. Clearly that's not the start you want. Everyone knows that. I'm not, breaking any ground here when I say that. But you give up 4 runs in the first inning. Brandon Stone comes out. He pitches 5 innings. He gives up 5 earned total, but he gives up 4 in the first inning. Okay? So now you're working from behind. You lose that game 8-5. You like to think if you don't give up the 4 runs, maybe you don't lose because you only lost by 3 runs. That's how the series started. It ended with a 10-inning loss on Sunday where you took a 2-run lead into the 9th inning. There's so many positives, and we're going to get into them. I'm going to break you down and build you up. There's so many positives from this weekend, especially offensively. Like you look good in a couple of areas. Like the starting pitching struggled at the start of the weekend, and obviously the bullpen struggled on the end of the weekend. But let's also think about the fact that you hit 336 over 3 games. You're now second you're second in the SEC behind Arkansas in terms of batting average. So that's great. I love the fact that Henry Kazmar came out and he had his best weekend of the season. He had 6 hits over the 3 games, moving his average up. I think it's like around 260 now. That's huge. You're going to need to get him going. Nathan Hall continues to lead everyone on this team. He's been fantastic. I think he's hitting 410 right now. He's your only player over 400. Obviously, Ethan Petrie is at 373. He's still got your 5 bombs, whatever. Gets credit with an RBI in the Sunday game when he gets hit with the bases loaded to make it 5-3. But here's the thing where I get frustrated about, and you got to look big picture when it comes to baseball, because like, how many times have you watched a baseball team, and not just South Carolina, I'm talking about any level, and you watch a frustrating loss or something that gets away from you, and they're going to happen. And a lot of times, guys, if we're being honest, a lot of times they're going to happen on both sides. Like, very rarely are you only on the losing end in baseball of these type of losses. You're going to have dramatic come-from-behind wins. South Carolina will have dubs in that win column at some point throughout this season. I'm not worried about that. That's just the way the game works. It's been played for 170 years, and that's exactly how it goes. But how many times when you look at a baseball team and standings at the end of the season do we see this every year where it's like, unless you're in the same division as the Dodgers, who can just buy everyone, how many times do you look at something and say, oh, man, we're a game and a half back, or we're only 2 games back? And then you look at especially in MLB, when it's like, well, it's a 162-game season, and you end up being a game back or a couple games back at the end of the year. These games matter. And I look at the South Carolina team, and I think, all right, listen, you got swept against Clemson. That sucked. Clemson's a very good team. Clemson is a very good team. But you had spots there against Clemson where you were close to winning, didn't blow any leads, but you had several spots there where you could have won games, right? So then you go into SEC play against Oklahoma. I thought this was not a series that you necessarily expected to win, but if you could steal 2 games instead of just 1 against the number 12 team in the country that's now a top 10 team, that's big. And it's big for a number of reasons, but it's especially big in this conference when you look at the schedule that you're going to have to play, because like LSU got to open with Missouri. There's not a better start to the year for an SEC team, especially you have arguably the best team in the conference. I don't think they are. They're probably second best. Arguably the best team in the conference versus hands down the worst team in the conference. South Carolina didn't get that luxury, okay? I don't even know if Mizzou's on the schedule this year, but they didn't get that luxury. I do know that. You get Oklahoma, and going into the second week of SEC play at 2-1 versus 1-2 is a big deal. And one of the reasons why is, listen, this is a 30-game SEC schedule. If you can get to 18 wins, you have a good chance of being able to host a regional. If you can get to 18 wins in SEC play and finish 18-12, there's a good chance you can win or you can host a regional. Now you're looking at the rest of the schedule, and you're like, okay, we have got to figure out a way to go 17-10 the rest of the way to be on that line. Now, you don't have to, but that is the goal, right? That is the goal. So it's frustrating to see that be where this team is, because giving a game away late in the 9th inning where you take a 5-3 lead to the 9th and you lose 6-5 in the 10th, that sucks. That just sucks. There's no other way to put it. That sucks. And now you look at the schedule and you're on the road against Arkansas, which is not an easy place to play. Very, very difficult, very far away for one. I don't know what the weather's going to be like over there, or if it would even matter. But like, that is just not an easy going on the road now to face a top 3 team in the country, consensus top 5. Now you've created an uphill climb for yourself. And that's where the frustration lies, right? Now, again, there's so many positives here. You out-hit them like 36-27 on the weekend. It might have been 37-26. It might be just dyslexia mixing those numbers up. But, I mean, you out-hit them on the weekend. I mean, you outplayed them in a lot of ways. But, like, in a series where the two losses were by combined 4 runs, and you gave up a total of 7 runs in the first inning and last 2 innings combined of the series, those are avoidable things. Those are avoidable things that you have to get better at. And listen, here's what sucks the most. And you guys know this from being fans in sports in general, but also for South Carolina for a long time. Sometimes, as frustrating as it is, it takes teams with good players, but under new coaches, it takes time for those teams to learn how to win. And maybe that's what we're seeing here. Maybe I'm overreacting. I honestly hope it's the latter part of that. And hopefully that's what it is. You're 16-5 right now, still a hell of a season right now. Like your only losses are to top 10 teams. So there's a lot of positives to take away. You get College of Charleston on Tuesday night over there where the Fireflies play. Yeah, the Fireflies, not the Blowfish. So that's good news. It's kind of an odd thing. You have a 50-9 all-time record against College of Charleston. You guys know more than me because I've lived in the city for a long time, but I just didn't know this about like the baseball part of it. Like they haven't really played that much, which is shocking to me. Usually a pretty good ball club down there. There's talent in this state all over the place, as you guys know more than anyone. But big opportunity on Tuesday. Need to get a dub there, rest up, and then figure out going to Arkansas. I'm trying to look up real quick when that series starts. But then going to Arkansas this weekend. Like I said, the positives, out-hit them, hitting 336 now in conference play. I do think it's a big deal that Kazmir had 6 hits on the weekend. At the very least, he's got the lowest batting average of any of the starters hitting in 258. So to have that be bumped up, you've only got 2 guys that are consistent starters, I guess. I wouldn't say consistent starters, probably not the best way to put it. Where they have, what do you call it? I don't know. Like 2 guys basically of your top starters that are under 300. Kennedy Jones pushes his average up to 300, had 3 hits on Saturday. Jordan Carrion, another guy that with Nathan Hall that had a hit, at least 1 hit in every single game. Not a ton of pop yet. You got 21 home runs. Petrie's still at 5, which is kind of shocking after the start that he had, but I think they're going to be fine there. Listen, sometimes it just takes teams a minute to learn how to win. Maybe that's what we're seeing. Or here's another thing. Maybe I'm just completely overreacting because of the fact that you have 5 losses on the season and they're all the top 10 teams. The adverse side of that, though, guys, because there are no moral losses or moral victories that we want to talk about here this early especially. But one reason why I hate that stat is because, guys, everyone in the top half of this conference is going to be in the top 10. If you look at D1 baseball right now, 8 of the top 10 teams in the country are from the SEC. And that's kind of how it goes in this conference every single year. So, yeah, it's one thing to say, like, well, it sucks. You're 16-5, had a chance to beat Oklahoma, and you had swept against Clemson. Those are really, really good ball clubs. Fine. But, that's what you're going to be facing all year. Now, I will also say this. Oh, my God. It just the schedule does not get any easier, okay? You got Arkansas on the road this weekend. Then you got a neutral site game against North Carolina, who's very beatable, by the way. That would be a massive win, I feel like. Then you get Tennessee at home, who is the best team in the country. Presbyterian, career 1,000 hitter against Presbyterian. No big deal. We can talk about it. At Mississippi State, who's also beatable. USC Upstate. The fact that Upstate is playing South Carolina, that they were in our conference in the Peach Belt for a while. At A&M, that's a winnable series. Ole Miss is at home is a winnable series. You get North Florida, also a former Peach Belt member. Kentucky. So, maybe I was wrong. The schedule itself is pretty winnable here, guys. LSU at home, which is the very last one before the tournament, SEC tournament. Auburn on the road is tough because they're a top 25 team. Florida is tough, but they are beatable. At Kentucky. So, listen, if you get through this hump, if you can get through Arkansas, Tennessee, and North Carolina, I'll set the bar low. Like, your next 8 games, College of Charleston, 3 against Arkansas, UNC, 3 against Tennessee. If you can go 3-5, I think that's a win. And that's setting the bar low. All right, that is all for today's show. I hope all of you had a fantastic time. Hope you have a great rest of your Monday evening, Tuesday morning, whenever you're listening to this. Love you guys. Appreciate you guys. We'll be back tomorrow with more Locked On Gamecocks, and we will talk to you all then. Go Cox.